Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mental Toughness Podcast.org. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast at mentaltoughnesspodcast.org. It's not com, it's .org. And we'll alert you every week with an email letting you know about the new episode. Okay, so we're going to talk about today the power of self-talk. And this is one of the most misunderstood topics in all of performance psychology. What we say to ourselves. And I think that there's really two groups of people in the world. People that really believe in this and they believe in it wholeheartedly. I'm talking about performers, not like the average person walking down the street. I don't think they're really too dialed into self-talk necessarily. But people that are into high performance psychology, athletes, high performers of whatever, in whatever area, they've heard something or know something or studied something about the power of programming, self-programming. You might call it self-brainwashing if you want to. It's got a negative context, but you know, that's what it is effectively. You're training your brain, you're brainwashing yourself, whatever you want to call it, programming yourself. And so there's two groups of people in the performance world. There's half of them that think it's complete nonsense, and that was really sort of blown up years ago with in Saturday Night Live when Al Franken, the comedian back then, had a segment, a little bit sketch on Saturday Night Live called Stuart Smalley, and he'd look in the mirror and he has a little sweater on, he'd say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. And people made fun of that. It was funny, and I laughed at it too. And that turned a lot of people that I know off of self-talk because they said, well, this is ridiculous. You know, I'm talking to myself in a mirror, I'm talking to myself driving down the road, or I'm talking to myself in the shower. You know, what the hell am I doing here? I feel like an idiot, you know, because what I'm saying to myself might be something I'm trying to project into the future. I'm trying to turn myself into something that I'm currently not. So, for example, if I say, well, if I want to be more organized in my life, I might say I'm the most organized person I've ever met, just to myself. I'm the most organized person I've ever met. It just comes naturally to me. I tend to lean toward being more organized than less organized. You know, I just have a knack for organization, and I might be currently the worst organized person in the world. But what I'm trying to do effectively is turn myself into something I currently am not. The question is, of course, does it work? And the answer across the board that's been proven scientifically is yes, it works. Now, yeah, it does sound crazy if you don't know the science behind it. But in 1986, a gentleman that I've known for a long time, I didn't know him back then, but I bought the book the week it came out in 1986 because I was playing professional tennis, trying to play professional tennis, not very well, but I was trying. And it's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. This is a phenomenal book. It's written at an 8th grade level, but it basically is the science behind self-talk, programming, brainwashing. All those things. And it backs up what people in performance psychology have known for who knows how many years, that this stuff really works, that you really can talk yourself into becoming something you are currently not, or believing something you don't currently believe. Now, if you want to know some examples, and this is not from the book, these are examples I've used in speeches for 25 years all over the world. I've written articles about it. I've written it in books of mine over the years. There's so many proof examples, but one of them, and they're negative examples and positive examples, but the negative and positive of programming really is irrelevant in terms of, it's relevant in terms of its effect, but it's not relevant in terms of proof examples. Okay, so one of the ones is the emergence over the years of cults. How do people end up in cults? Well, most people would say they're brainwashed, and they're right, they're brainwashed. They're brainwashed to believe a set of beliefs that typically alienate them and ostracize them from normal society, purposely. And so what the purveyors of cults really do is they start to get people to believe a certain way. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they belong, like they're part of a club or a tribe or a church or a group. And basically they set it up where if you don't believe these set of doctrines, okay, then you are not, you're not part of our club. It's us against them, in other words. And that's how cults get stronger and stronger. Okay? You want to look at a cult? and I hope, no, this doesn't offend anyone, but I don't know how you would not call it a cult, Scientology, okay, of which, Tom Cruise is a member. And I like Tom Cruise. I just saw Top Gun Maverick, thought it was a great movie. I think everyone thinks it's a great movie. They've seen it. Fantastic. Scientology, if Scientology is not a cult, then I don't know even how to define a cult, okay? A cult disguised as a church. Okay, and I won't go into it because this is not about Scientology, but that's an example. And if you're a Scientologist, I apologize, but I think that it's not about, well, it's about look at what defines a cult. Okay, they basically have us against them. I was just working in New York last week, and we stayed at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square, and of course, right across the street, if you've been to the Marriott Marquis there, right in the heart of Times Square is the Scientology building in Times Square. And it's a big, fancy building. I mean, this is a super, super rich organization that has people giving hundreds of thousands of dollars of money they don't have to learn things that were made up by a science fiction writer named L. Ron Hubbard. I'm not trying to offend anybody. Do your research. I mean, this is not an opinion. Okay, the guy was a science fiction writer. He said at one point, how you get rich in America? You start a religion. And you make it up, and people will follow it because they're starving for group, community, tribe, whatever you want to call it. People are wired that way. It's part of evolution, and he was absolutely right about that. I mean, he was a charlatan, but he was absolutely right. He did it, and Scientology is one of the richest organizations in the history of the world. They own real estate all over the world. They're unbelievable, and they've got a set of, I mean, it's very scary, actually. But people say, well, how is a guy like Tom Cruise, who seems like a pretty smart guy, he's one of the biggest movie stars in the world, how do they fall for programming like that? Because they're brainwashed to fall for it. I don't care if you're a movie star or you're cleaning up trash on the road. You're a human being. We are susceptible and prone to programming. Now, that's in a negative context. But what if you want to so it works, is my point. That was my point of bringing the whole thing up, not to bash Scientology, although I don't mind bashing Scientology. But that's not the point of it. But it works. Okay, here's another proof example of how the brain responds to stimuli. Okay, you're in a movie. It's a scary movie, right? And someone's coming after the person. You're in the big movie theater. You got a 90-foot screen, and someone's chasing the other person with a knife, and you're sweating and you're nervous. You're thinking, run, run, run. Or they get a gun and they turn on the bad guy, and then they want to talk to the bad guy, and you're thinking, just shoot the bad guy. You ever do that? Just shoot the bad guy. No, they got to have a conversation. And you know exactly what's going to happen, just as I do. The bad guy's going to get the gun somehow because they were too stupid just to not shoot him, right? They got to talk to him. They have a conversation. Just shoot the guy. All right? He's going to kill you. And the bad guy gets the gun from the good guy, and they kill the good guy, and that's the way it goes. And we say, how could they possibly do that, right? But the point of it is that what's happening physiologically when we're in those movies is we're nervous. So our hearts are racing if we're really into the movie, and we're nervous and we're kind of jumpy. Well, think about that. How is that possible? You know it's a movie. Yeah, consciously you know it's a movie, but your subconscious is responding to all this stimuli. Okay, the music, which is perfect for the situation, scary music, right? The images on the screen, the facial expressions of the characters, and all these other things that go along with making a movie that's very scary. Your body's reacting to it as if you're in danger. And you're clearly not. So what happened? Why don't you run out of the movie theater? Because your conscious mind overrides your subconscious mind and says, look, dummy, it's just a movie. Yeah, you can sweat and you can get nervous, you can get jumpy. That's part of the fun because you're not in actual danger. If you're in actual danger, it wouldn't be fun, but you know you're safe. And so the conscious mind overrides the subconscious mind. But subconsciously, your mind is taking in these things, the stimuli, and it's responding to it accordingly. That proves that you can fool your mind into believing anything, good or bad. Evil or, something positive. And so it works on both sides. It makes no difference, but it proves out either way. You can prove it. So, okay, so the point of this is you decide what it is that you want to become. You decide what it is that you want to believe. Like, here's a question for a critical thinking question we ask all performers. I did turnarounds for, major sales organizations for 23 years. We increase sales collectively in these companies across America and some foreign countries, certainly Canada. by $1.3 billion. And one of the things we did with the salespeople that made it work was we said, what would you have to believe about yourself as a salesperson, about yourself as a performer, about your customer, about your product, and about your company, as well as some other criteria? What would you have to believe to be a top performer in saying that, assuming now that you're somewhere in the middle, okay, or maybe toward the bottom? What do you think a top performer, a top salesperson believes about their product, about their customer, about themselves, about their sales ability, and all these other pieces of criteria? What do they have? What would you imagine they believe? And we talk to them and they'd say, well, they have to believe that the product is a better product than any other product. Is that true? Well, I'm not really sure. What would it take for you to believe that your product's the best product, in class? Well, I'd have to study it more. And then they do, and then they tell themselves, this really is the best product. And then what I used to tell them, which did not go over well with the managers, I'd say, look, and if it's not the best product, you're never going to be a top salesperson unless you're a really good liar. And I don't think you want to spend your life lying. If you don't believe this is the best product, don't sell it. Go somewhere where you find the best product, because you're going to be a lot more successful when you believe it, because sales is the transfer of belief from the salesperson to the prospect. It's all it really is. Because I don't have the success with the product if I'm a prospect, but you seem so hyped up on it. You seem so sure of yourself that I feel that my risk, of loss is diminished because you're so certain about it. And people buy certainty, and certainty comes from belief, and belief comes from programming. It can come from programming, let's say. It can come just from natural circumstances or experiences as well. But what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't show up and you need to create it out of thin air when it's really not true? Like one of the things that salespeople always push back on for 23 years in turnaround situations. We go into a company or a region typically of a huge 60 or 70 billion dollar company, and we go and turn around the lowest performing regions in terms of market share and sales. And so typically we'd end up helping companies raise sales by anywhere between 50 and 150 million dollars in 12 to 18 months. And if we did that, we got bonuses and all kinds of things. And if we didn't do that, actually we never failed at it, which is kind of unbelievable. It's hard to even imagine saying that, but we had a lot of success with it. I will say this though, in defense of modesty, let's say, we only took the ones we thought we could turn around. I turned down a lot of them. The ones I thought were hopeless, I didn't take. So I took the ones that we had the best chance of succeeding with. So I will say that's why our record was, for 9 straight years, we didn't miss one. We never really missed one overall, but some were more successful than others. But the point of it is that we had to believe, just like they had to believe, that they could turn it around. We took one division, ranked number 12 in the country, and in 1 year they went to number 1. And I know that if you're not in corporate America, that might not mean anything to you, but that is what they call a statistical anomaly. That does not happen. That is freakish. The more freakish thing is the next 12 months we did it again. It was the only time that organization was with Johnson & Johnson. They won the President's Award, which just doesn't happen. And just up 2 years in a row, number 1 in the country is unbelievable. And I'll tell you how we did it. We partially did it where we helped them change their beliefs around. And we said, what would you have to believe to be a number 1 team? These guys are 12 in the country. They're not number 1. They don't even know what number 1 looks like. Well, what do you think it looks like? So we studied some of the number 1 team. We said, these people are confident. These people are great presenters in front of the customer. They're persistent. They're mentally tough. They're sure of themselves. They speak with certainty. They're able to transfer their belief in a very natural, powerful, persuasive way when they're in FaceTime, as they call it in corporate America, when they're face-to-face, in other words, with the customer. And so we took a whole bunch of these things that these guys, I had them figure it out, and I said, then how do we get you guys to believe the same things they believe, even if currently you don't believe it? And see, that's the key. If you believe it, then it's natural. But what if you don't believe it? How do you program yourself? You do what they do in Scientology. You brainwash yourself. You just do it in a positive context instead of a negative context where you're handing over your money that you don't have. hundreds of thousands that they're bankrupting people because they're making them pay for these classes with these ridiculous prices and to go to the church, as they call it. A tax-free organization, tax-free business. That's why they're so rich. It's absolutely shameful. And I think Tom Cruise should be ashamed of himself for even being part of something like that. But he's so brainwashed, he doesn't even know it. And he probably lives in a big bubble of those brainwashed people, and they reinforce each other's beliefs. So it can be very negative, but on a positive sense, it can be very positive as well. So that's the cool thing about it, is that you can pick anything you want to believe, and then what you have to do is say it over and over and over. So another product I want to recommend is it's a digital product now, but it used to be a CD product. It's called The Making of a $1 Million Mind. I did this product after interviewing, I guess it was about probably 25 years of interviews with self-made millionaires that I've been doing all over the country and all over the world since 1984. About 25 years in, I believe it was, I recorded this album. I took all their beliefs that they expressed to me during the interviews, and I put them on a recording. It used to be on tape, then it was on CD, and now it's on digital product. We sell it at Seabold Network if you're interested. SeaboldNetwork.com. SeaboldNetwork.com. It's Seabold's SIEBOLD Network.com. And you can buy it. It's like $30 or $29 or something like that. And you listen to these world-class beliefs over and over, and there's music behind the beliefs that I'm saying on the audio program. You just listen to it. I have dentists, doctors, lawyers. They play it in the background in their offices every day, like you'd play music, because there's a little music in it too. And you just listen to these things, and it's just like basic programming. You'll start to believe whatever you hear over and over and over, especially when you begin to repeat what you hear to yourself. The ultimate kicker is when you start to express those beliefs that you're hearing and repeating to yourself to other people. I'm able to, I'm saying this to myself as a belief, even if I don't have this skill. I'm able to transfer my belief about XYZ product to every customer I encounter. I don't know what it is, but I just have this belief. It's so strong, and I believe it's the best thing for my customer, and they can feel it. They can feel the influence. And you start telling yourself that, even if it's not true currently, and then you start telling other people that. And you know what happens? You eventually believe it. Think of, again, I don't want to go too far with the proof examples, but look at society right now, anywhere in the world. But let's take America, because I think America is the craziest place right now. Look at the things that people believe. These things are not true at all. The news media is the conservative media and the liberal media are going at each other, and they're both at some level saying things that are absolutely untrue, that you can prove are untrue. Like there's evidence to prove it. There's no way you could actually say this with a straight face. And both sides, the extremes, of course, it's always the extremes, both sides are saying things that are patently untrue. And they're trying to convince their listeners or their audience or their viewers that they are true. It's borderline insanity at this point. And it seems to be getting worse, not better. But when people say, oh, they're lying, here's the truth of it. This is the psychology behind it. Yes, there are some that are probably lying, and I could name some names. We probably would disagree on some of that, but that's for another show, for another time. Doesn't really matter. It's not a political show or anything like that. But just from a psychological standpoint, some are lying. Yeah, some are just liars. Okay, no question about that. But I will tell you, in my opinion, okay, most of the people are not lying. They believe what they're saying. Now, they may have no evidence to back it up, but that doesn't mean they won't express it as if they do. See, people really believe these things are true. Not all of them, but not all the people. Some are just liars. But the other people really believe these things are true. And so they keep saying them over and over. People say, how can they say these things? They really believe it. Emotional creatures, you guys, human beings, we are so susceptible and prone to brainwashing. It's almost embarrassing. Some of the things, like Scientology, to me, that's an embarrassment to the human race. That we're so stupid, we're so gullible, we're so naive that we believe these things. I mean, how do you believe something with no evidence whatsoever if you're a critical thinker, even at a fourth grade level? It makes no sense. I mean, if you want to say, well, you have to have faith in some things you can't see or unseen and all that. Okay, well, all right, you can do it. I mean, it's not my opinion. I don't agree with that. I mean, that's just my opinion. I'm just one person. Everyone has an opinion. But I don't need to have faith in things I don't see. I don't have evidence for. I think that's a complete lack of critical thinking. But if you say, well, you don't understand faith, you're not a faith-based person. Okay, well, make the claim. All right, that's fine if you want to do that. But when it comes to performance psychology, when it comes to being great or being good or succeeding at what you want to succeed at, you want to be grounded in objective reality, not fantasy, not delusion, and not faith, except maybe faith in yourself that you'll persist until you succeed. But outside of evidence-based, things that you can see, touch, taste, feel, prove, identify, you want to be very careful because you're taking big risks. And usually things without evidence are without evidence for a reason, because they're not true. Let's just be honest. I mean, I'm being a little rough on the show. I know, and that it wasn't purpose. It's not purposeful. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or beat up Scientology too much or anything like that. Although it's, I'll let that go. I'm hitting that too hard. But point of it is, I'm not trying to be tough for no reason, but this is mental toughness. Okay, you do have to wake up and smell the coffee at some point, when it comes to mental toughness. Unless you don't care about mental toughness, and why would you be watching or listening to this if you didn't care about it? Okay, so I'll go with that. I'll leave it at that. We'll pick this up another time. But what to say when you talk to yourself? Dr. Shad Helmstetter, the best book ever written on this topic. Lots have been written. This is the best. And he's a brilliant guy. He lives in Florida, and he's a great guy. I've known him for, 20 years. And making $1 million mind is a totally different thing, but it's the same idea. You get these beliefs. Pick this up. Not the CDs, but the online, you can download it online. It's an audio file. And it'll help you out a lot. And try it. If you haven't tried it, try it. It works. Guarantee it. Okay. So with that, guys, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, mentaltoughness.podcast.org. mentaltoughness.podcast.org. Then we'll send you an email every week with a new episode. And so you won't miss an episode. We'd love to have you subscribe, and I appreciate your time. And I appreciate your consideration thinking about these things, and then take action. See you next time.